Okay, we're going to go ahead and call to order the Board of County Commissioners for Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020.
Good morning, Commissioners. The first item on your agenda is public comment.
Okay, we're going to start to see if anybody's on the phone that would like to participate in public comment.
Good morning, Madam Chair. If there are members of the public on the call who would like to make a public comment during this session, please hit *1 now. Madam Chair, it doesn't appear there are any callers. I also have no submitted email comments.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the public comment to anybody in this audience that would like to speak. Please come forward, state your name for the record. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Carla Perez. I am the Regional Vice President for Universal Health Services, and I'm speaking today in regards to item number 58, the recommended use of coronavirus relief funds. I oversee the operation of our 8 acute care hospitals across Nevada, including the Valley Health System, made up of 6 acute care hospitals, 2 freestanding emergency rooms, along with 2 behavioral health hospitals residing in Clark County. As Clark County's largest provider of hospital services, the Valley Health System has been required to repurpose and harness the resources of our 1,900 beds, 10,000 employees, and millions of dollars worth of life-saving equipment, PPE, and medications to the coronavirus response. Our facilities care for over 330,000 emergency room patients and perform over 40,000 surgeries annually, representing over 44% of all acute care hospital services provided to Clark County residents. Over the past 3 months, we have cared for over 1,000 patients who were diagnosed with coronavirus. And those are only the patients who tested positive. Obviously, there were a lot more patients who came in with symptoms who we tested and had in an investigational status. As most healthcare systems have experienced, we too have undergone unprecedented financial stress and hardship during the current COVID-19 pandemic. In order to accommodate and care for our patients and prepare for a potential surge, our routine and elective medical services were decreased substantially during this public health crisis. Our financial stability has been dramatically damaged due to the loss of revenues, as well as the significant increase in expense related to the care of COVID patients. Many of these expenses were due to nationwide shortfalls in personal protective equipment, or PPE, that have required purchasing these much-needed supplies to protect our employees and patients at significantly higher prices than we would normally have paid on the market, in addition to the acquisition of needed medication and the purchasing of additional ventilators. Our labor expense was also high due to additional positions created to monitor and screen patients, visitors, and staff, again in an effort to safeguard our community, along with training of staff to care for patients in a safe and effective manner. In addition, despite lower volumes of patients due to the canceling of elective procedures, we could not lay off staff as we needed them to be ready and able to work if we were to experience a surge, which was anticipated, of COVID-related patients. UHS as a company did not lay off any staff at any of its hospitals across the country. Instead of laying off, employees were flexed where we could or furloughed, and I might add that most of the furloughed employees were at their choice due to immunocompromising conditions. UHS did choose to continue to pay the health benefits for any employee who was on furlough, with the caveat that the employee had to be willing and able to return to work with a 24-hour notice if there was a surge. Our increased expenses during this public health crisis are necessary expenditures as defined by the CARES Act and entitled for appropriation. We respectfully petition Clark County for emergency care funding to compensate for the significant financial impact caused by this crisis in order to care for COVID-19 patients in an equitable amount proportional to our relative contribution and loss. I appreciate your time and consideration of this request.
Thank you. And Ms. Perez, I don't normally do this, but I thought you were going to speak on the actual item number 58, but it does do with small business. But so can I just ask that, one, I thought that there was already, there was a separate hospital bill, and I'd be curious, and you don't have to give me all this information today, if you guys got those dollars. And two, look, all of us have experienced the same crisis, but I'd be curious to know what specific dollar amount that you're looking for. just so we could see. But our congressional delegation did tell me that there was a separate hospital bill, and I know there was a separate hospital bill for the rules. I know that. So if you could get that information in a little more detail.
Yeah, I can provide some of that to you today, if I may.
Okay.
We have been impacted probably close to about $100 million to date.
So let me just help you here. I get it. We're at 215 million, right? If you watch our own budget with Mason. So I'm just asking specific what your dollars are, your increase. So if you're telling me the number is 100 million, I got to tell you that our congressional delegation, I can share their phone number because I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, no, I certainly appreciate that everybody has experienced hardship as a result of this, but we would like to certainly be considered as well when you're considering the distribution of funds. We have received some funds. It equates to probably about 40% of the coverage of the total impact, but certainly doesn't come anywhere near the total impact that we've experienced.
Yeah, well, we're in the same boat, $1.1 billion shortfall, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
if we can all work together for our congressional delegation, we all might benefit something. But I'd need to see that in writing before I could do that. Okay?
Sure. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak during public comment? Seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment.
Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on May 5th, 2020, and the emergency meeting on May 8th of 2020.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Gibson. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please cast your vote. That motion passes.
Item number 3 is the approval of the agenda with the inclusion of any emergency items and deletion of any items. Madam Chair and Commissioners, I do not have any items, or actually I do not have any staff changes to the items on the agenda.
Okay, do I have any changes from anybody on the agenda? Anybody from the audience want anything taken off the agenda? No? I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda. I have a motion by Commissioner Weekly to approve the agenda. No further discussion. Please cast your vote. And that motion passes.
We can move to section 2 of your agenda, which is your consent agenda. Please note that items numbers 4 through 50 comprise of your consent agenda. I do not have any items to be taken separately at this time, nor any items to be deleted.
Do I have anybody that wants to take anything from the consent agenda and heard it separately? Do I have anybody from the public that wants anything taken from the consent agenda and heard separately? Okay, Commissioner Gibson has moved for approval of consent agenda comprising of items 4 through 50. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. And that motion passes.
Commissioners, we can move to section 5 of your agenda, which are your business items. Item number 55 is to identify emerging issues to be addressed by staff or by the board at future meetings, receive updates on the activities of the various regional boards and commissions, and direct staff accordingly.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Weekly.
Thank you. Hey, Marion Miller, let me ask a question here. I know we say your whole name, right? First, middle, and last name. Sorry about that. Ms. Miller, so on items number 8 through 11, we hadn't done it in a long time, and I've just gotten totally off base here. I didn't disclose that I served as chair of the JAG grant. And so, Madam Chair, through you, with your permission, Marion Miller, if I can put that on the record, and Commissioner Segerbloom, if you'd like to be a part of
I guess I better put it on the record. I'm the vice chair.
We're both chair and vice chair of the JAG grant, items 8 through 11.
Those disclosures are sufficient, and you were proper to vote on them.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Marion.
I'm going to start with emerging issues. Anybody, Commissioner Neff, anybody want to start on this side? Nothing? Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to thank our folks for their work on the Bike to Ballot Box bike event we had this last Saturday. It was a fun opportunity to exercise the vote, just a reminder to everyone that June 9th is the date of the primary, and make sure you get your ballots in the mail or dropped off at one of the many locations where you can drop your ballot. Obviously, I think a reminder that elections are very important right now. Want to thank our Parks and Rec team, Mr. Hernandez and your team for the In It Together SMB dance party at the Shadowbrook Apartments last Thursday. It was a lot of fun. We had dozens of people out there. I think Mr. Erickson said that there are more than 17,000 views for the video. So it's a great program. Hope we can continue the program as we reopen and find the funding for that. Wanted to give a shout out to the organizers of the Vegas Community Pantry, Annette Magnus, Donna West, and Gina Blackman, for opening their garages, their homes, to a community-wide food pantry for the last several months to serve those who are in need. They've spent countless hours in hot garages, cleaning products, arranging for donations, and deliveries to hundreds of needy families. Also want to give a shout out to the principals and administrators for the high schools in my district and other districts for trying to make for fun events for graduation for our high school seniors. Obviously, this is an odd year for everyone, and a lot of our kids are not having the same graduation experiences that we all had, and I appreciate the work that the administrators in my district have done. I know, just as an example, at Desert Oasis, Principal Jennifer Bodecker and her team put together a really fun drive-through prom event that was really fun, had a taco truck out there, and I know several of the other principals have done similar work, so thank you to all those who are working hard to give our seniors the experience they deserve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Brown, anything? Okay, Commissioner Sagerblum, anything? Commissioner Gibson? Commissioner Weekly.
Thank you. So a couple of things, Madam Chair. I'm sure we'd all join in and recognize June as Pride Month, when the world's let me make sure I say it right, LGBTQ communities come together and celebrate the freedom to be themselves. Pride gatherings are rooted in the arduous history of minority groups who have struggled for decades to overcome prejudice and be accepted for who they are. So on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, we join in celebrating June Pride Month with y'all. District D, we recently hosted a drive-in movie night. Thank you to our LEAP chairperson, Commissioner Kirkpatrick, and her team, Commissioner Bob Lucy from Northern Nevada, Commissioner Gokachia, and our executive director from NACO, Dagny Stapleton. This was a part of the phase-in, and our one and only movie theater, drive-in movie theater. It was a blast. We had over 100 families that came out that night at our screen. Our screen was packed out. It was awesome. We teamed up with Country Kettle Corn, and we, because of the snack bar, the lead chair over here, she wouldn't allow the snack bar to be open, so we had to bring popcorn to the people.
I've got to follow the rules sometimes.
I know, right? So we brought out kettle corn popcorn to everyone at the theater. They got a chance to enjoy 2 movies. Thank you to Siegel Cares for co-sponsoring the event with us, and West Wind Drive-In Theater. It was a great night, a lot of fun. It was beautiful. I mean, the theater was absolutely packed. Every screen was jam-packed. Only thing about the drive-in, just a heads up, is you can't get out of your cars. A lot of people were disappointed with that. They bought chairs to sit outside their vehicles, but because of those strict rules, they weren't allowed to do that. Last night, thank you to Director Shani Coleman and Director Holloway and Eric Papa and the PIO team and the IT team. We were very fortunate to host a teletown hall that was aired live on Channel 4, Clark County Facebook Live, Clark County YouTube, and ClarkCounty.com. Ken Evans and Sean Newsom from Urban Chamber of Commerce, Peter Guzman from the Latin Chamber of Commerce, and Sonny, how do you say his last name, Vinua? From the Asian Chamber of Commerce, were a part of the panel. We spoke with the community about small business needs and what Clark County has to offer, and we have many of those small businesses tuned in to us this morning to listen to Director Coleman's presentation this morning on how Clark County, of course, is stepping up to help as it relates to COVID recovery. And so thank you to Manager King and her team for allowing us an opportunity to do that. We also, too, at this time, I don't know, Skip, if we have a picture of Dr. Robert E. Fowler, Sr. Dr. Fowler, Commissioner Jones and I, Commissioner Jones wanted to pay tribute to Dr. Fowler as well at our last commission meeting, but for the record, I'll disclose I was not emotionally prepared to deal with it, and so I thank you for yielding on that. And if you'd like to share some words at this time, Dr. Fowler was my pastor at Victory Missionary Baptist Church, and many of you all remember Dr. Fowler. He would come and render prayers here for us here, and Commissioner Brown was gracious enough to allow him to also offer prayer at the LVCVA Board of Directors meetings as well. So, Madam Chair, through you, if I could yield back over to Commissioner Jones, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Weekly. I had the opportunity to get to know Pastor Fowler working on gun violence prevention measures a few years ago, and he was a pillar of the community, someone who inspired many. My family and I had the opportunity to visit Victory Missionary Baptist Church on several occasions, and it was the funnest church I ever got to go to, and it was uplifted every time that we have visited, and particularly at this kind of time, it's unfortunate that he's not with us to help heal the community. So he's a great man and a great loss to our community.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. And on this Sunday, our church will host a tribute to Dr. Fowler. He's gotten, his family in the church has received comments and words of inspiration from around the world. This man is very impactful to a lot of people, and definitely we will miss him. And paying tribute to high school graduates and graduates from all around Clark County. We had a clip I'd like to show. This was a group that got together, and I'd like to thank these ladies, Kaya Thorns, Molly Logan, Sandra Smith, Candy Hicks, that is, Kanisha Metlock, Appel Porter, and Rhonda Jordan. And they teamed up to pay tribute to graduates from all around Clark County. And so, Madam Manager, if you don't mind, I'd like to roll the clip, please. Thank you.
With high school graduates not being able to walk across the stage, one organization is hoping to celebrate those seniors in a different way. I talked to Kanisha Matlock with Adopt a High School Graduate to learn more. Kanisha, thank you so much for getting the word out about this. We know that our children have been through so much.
So it's definitely a group effort. One of my dear friends, Kaya, wanted to throw a prom for the kids, and this pandemic started, so of course that went out the window. Her and another friend, Rhonda, came up with the concept. They started the group. It started growing so fast that they had to create a team of us. So it's a group of 10 of us that are working our tails off to give these kids just some type of upliftment and encouragement during these trying times. You know, it's something new for all of us. And the kids that just, you know, their demeanor, their spirits were a little low, and we just wanted to uplift them. So we have over 725 high school seniors adopted.
Here, tell people where they need to go again to sign up to be a part of it.
You will go to our Facebook group, and it is Adopt a High School Graduate, Class of 2020 Vegas Edition, and you will simply request to be in our group. And once we accept you, you can submit your student's bio to be adopted, or you can simply scroll through and use our Not Adopted tab, and you can adopt a high school senior.
Thank you so much, and thank you, ladies, and the whole committee. Over 750 high school students were adopted through this initiative here, and we are so very grateful. Lastly, you know, of course, with everything that's going on with this pandemic that we're dealing with, we are dealing with a lot of civil unrest that's taking place around the country, and it's so unfortunate at this time. You know, as we all witnessed a tragic crime happen right before many of our eyes. It's Commissioner Kirkpatrick and I are dealing with just right now with not only what's going on in Minneapolis with the loss of George Floyd, which is so unfortunate and so unnecessary. Might I add, just the unrest around this country has just turned us upside down, and even right here in our very own community, as we look at a lot of the unrest and those who have chosen to share their concerns peacefully, there's a crowd that chooses to go otherwise, and we've experienced some damage to our own county facilities, But right now, Commissioner Kirkpatrick and I are communicating with our CEO and our manager of UMC. We have one of our officers who's not doing well. And of course, the gentleman who, unfortunately, he arrived at UMC dead on arrival on last evening. And so it's just really very, very unfortunate. Mason's here with us now. Mason, thank you. And it's just a very unfortunate situation that's going on. And I just really want to just make an appeal to our public once again. To exercise your First Amendment right is one thing, and I support that 100%. I support those who have taken to the streets to voice their concerns and opposition and discuss toward this systemic problem that have plagued us for decades. But when it crosses the line of destroying property and harming innocent people, it's totally crossing the line. And so we just, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm really emotional about this, and I just hope that through prayer and through a lot of people coming to the table and realizing that we all are in this together and we all have to solve this issue together. And so with that, yeah, I'm going to leave it right there right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Weekly. So for my emerging issues, most of you know that I represent Nellis, and I like to go above and beyond when the new colonel comes in and embrace them, bring them into my home, and show them truly what we do as Nevadans. And so today I'd be remiss if I didn't, as we transition to a new colonel, if I didn't invite Colonel Craddock up, as well as the Vice Commander, where'd you go? Vice Commander Gardner up, and give them a little bit of a token of our appreciation for all that they've done. So if you all come up, and I know it's not on here as on the agenda item, but I'd like to present them with a proclamation on behalf of Clark County. So. So thank you for this. We haven't done this in a while, but it is that transition time every 2 years when we see a new colonel. But I will tell you, for as long as I've been a kid in this town, I stay friends with them, and they do always come back to Nevada. So Colonel Craddock, there's a couple things. So you've done a lot this time. So he came in, thought it was going to be an easy ride before he retired. Little did he know we were going to have pandemic and everything else going on along the way, but we've also had several generals come here to see the partnership that Nellis has with UMC. The Thunderbirds, they did that amazing flyover, and now everybody wants them, so we need them to come back so we can properly thank them. But every colonel has a call sign, and yours is Caveman. And so we're going to make him tell us why that is. But really, for on behalf of Clark County and me personally as my friend, he's a big turkey hunter. So hunting did not bode well for him in Nevada, but he's going to retire and move on to Fort Worth. So hopefully he'll do well there. But on behalf of Clark County, one, we would like to declare today as Colonel Craddock Caveman Day. I could use a Caveman Day, so it stays with us forever. And then two, I have a couple tokens of appreciation for you. Some are personal, so I'll give this to you later. And he has a lovely wife, Tammy, and his son, so they're excited for their 20 years within service. But we wanted to give you a key to the city. And a coin is really something that's embedded within the military way. So I wanted to make sure that you had a Clark County coin that we had made for you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and let you tell us about what your plans are, what your experience has been in Nevada. I know it's been unique, but we hope that you'll come back. So let me take that stuff.
Well, I just want to thank the commissioner, all the commissioners up here for the amazing work that you do taking care of our airmen out at Nellis and at Creech and up on the Nevada Test and Training Range. It's been an honor to be here and to work with you. It has been a fantastic assignment. We've never had a community, I've never had a community in my 25 years that supports the base, supports the airmen better than Southern Nevada, and Clark County takes care of us. And so on behalf of all the men and women out at the Air Force Base and in our Air Force, we truly appreciate everything that y'all have done for us. It's been a great assignment. We've loved being here. It's our favorite base we've ever been stationed at, and we're going to hate to see it go. But just thank you all for all your amazing support.
From Hawaii, right?
That's right. When I was in Hawaii last time, I'm much happier to be here. So the call sign's caveman because I'm not very smart and I drag my knuckles and monobrow and that kind of thing. So.
That's not true. You are amazing. So first and foremost, if we could all give him a round of applause for what he does every day. And he'll be moving on next Friday to Fort Worth with his family. But he'll be back because he loves the outdoors so much that he's going to come back. So on behalf of myself and the County Commission, we really just want to say thank you for all the work that the men and women do out at the base. If you are not familiar, over 300 of them volunteer every month throughout our community, whether it's at food banks, whether it's helping with medical. They're out in our community and working very hard, and that is from the leadership at the top that establishes that ability to get out. We do have about 30,000 airmen and women that live right within our community off of the base, so that is a big deal. So a couple of things that Colonel Craddock has done, so I try, and it gets harder every time, is to put a legacy in for you. So some of the things that Colonel Craddock has been able to help us get accomplished, and it is a win-win partnership, is the Cary Road alignment. So Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Weekly, you will remember that Mary Kincaid started this 15 years ago. Signed, sealed, delivered. We're ready to go. And we will have a light coming out of the base for all of the airmen and women. But I think one of his biggest accomplishments is we found when we started ShotSpotter that we did not have enough security and Wi-Fi around the base as we should. So Colonel Craddock was instrumental in getting Wi-Fi on the base, throughout the base, and that is going to go a long ways for many airmen and women going forward. So we could get a picture with you. Vice Commander Gardner, would you like to say anything? So the way that it works is that we get a new colonel every 2 years. The vice commander stays, so we have some continuity, and that's super important so that we can continue. So, fellas, I'm used to being around all of you. Get close. With our mask, isn't it ironic? Closer. Don't like me today. One more round of applause for all that our military does.
Commissioners, next we have item number 56, which is to accept the business impact statement pursuant to NRS 237.090 for the proposed district resolution 20.20-002, which postpones to January 1 of 2021 and increased to the annual sewer service charge and connection fees scheduled for July 1 of 2020, and waives basic penalties and interest on delinquent accounts for quarter 4 of fiscal year 2019-20 and quarter 1 of fiscal year 2020-2021, and determine that the proposed resolution does not impose a significant economic burden on affected customers or take other action as appropriate.
Okay, Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Minwigan.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, good morning. Tom Minwigan with the Clark County Water Reclamation District. By the title the county manager just read, it probably gives you the short synopsis of what our next public hearing on June 16th will entail. We've reached out with our Citizens Advisory Committee as well as members of the commercial as well as development sectors in advance. They extend their thanks and appreciation to the board's consideration for this public hearing item. We did not receive any concerns of any significant financial impact to our community.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? Entertain a motion to accept the business impact statement and determine that the proposed resolution does not impose a significant economic burden on affected customers.
That's my motion.
Motion on the floor from Commissioner Gibson. Please cast your vote. Motion carries.
Thank you, members of the board.
Next, we have item number 57, which is to approve and authorize the chair to sign the resolution suspending certain requirements for privileged business licenses affected by the COVID-19 emergency and providing for other matters properly related thereto.
Commissioner Weekly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Director Holloway.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and Commissioners. Jacqueline Holloway, Director of Business License. We have before you, Commissioners, the second resolution that will waive certain requirements for businesses as they phase in. And I do want to be very clear that this is a resolution. This is not an ordinance change. So therefore, this is a temporary mechanism. So we're not changing any of our ordinances permanently. The other thing, too, is that the department also reached out to our liquor and gaming partners to understand various concepts that would be helpful for them during this time of phase in. What we are proposing is that this resolution is for a temporary 90-day waiver to protect and preserve licensing statuses. We're also proposing that the location suitability reporting requirements can be temporarily suspended. We're also proposing that liquor delivery is being temporarily continued. However, it's very important to note that the delivery is limited to residential delivery. And that delivery will not be allowed on resort hotel properties. And we're not allowing any third-party deliveries, which means that Postmates and Grubhub will not be able to deliver liquor, even if it's with food. We have the minimum seating capacities at this time for the next 90 days are being waived. We have certain seating requirements in supper clubs and restaurants, Category 2 restaurants, where it's requiring that you must have a minimum of 50 seats. So as we engage in social distancing, we want the businesses to be able to respect the public health and safety requirements. Food service must be available 50% of the hours that the business is open to the public. What that means, we do have a requirement that basically says that you have to provide food services 16 hours a day. We were thinking of businesses that as they phase in to decide if they want to open for 8 hours, they needed to have food service 50% of the time, which would be the 4 hours. Restaurants can continue also the food and liquor delivery to residential locations, and they can also continue with the curbside pickup as they phase in. And one of the most important aspects for me is to have a more formalized process, the same way we had with the resort reopening. We will put together an application process. The application will be available today. The community can access that application from www.clarkcountynv.gov. And that's going to be important because we will be able to understand what businesses are proposing and then what we will be able to approve. And it will allow for a consistent format. So we are not changing any ordinances at this time. We are just putting together a temporary waiver process by which we will be able to understand what the businesses are going to be doing during the phase-in and support them as they try to reopen. So that concludes my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Holloway. This is a public hearing?
No, sir, it is not.
No,
This is
we don't have to have a public hearing? No? Okay, we'll open it up to the commissioners. Any thoughts? Vice Chair Jones, anything you want to add, sir?
A couple of questions. So in terms of liquor delivery, would this allow for liquor delivery to existing privileged licensee properties?
It will not. It will only allow for liquor delivery into residential locations.
Okay. And in terms of locations that are currently required or allowed to have up to 15 gaming devices, how would it affect those? And has the Gaming Control Board given any indication on how they might respond to something like that?
The Gaming Control Board has not yet indicated their opinion on that, but this does not change the requirement for 15 slots in the bar top. And so therefore, those businesses will have to come up with a concept of social distancing that respects the slots in the bar top. There have been some recommendations to have standalone machines, and at this time, we are not entertaining that. That would require a full ordinance change, business impact statement, all of those other kinds of things that we'd have to put in place to do that.
Okay. I had understood from Ms. Lazovich that she may have gotten some direction from GCB. Are we okay with her addressing the commission?
Yes, yes, sir.
Ms. Miller, is that okay? Okay. Ms. Lazovich, if you come and share that with us, please. Thank you.
Good morning, Jennifer Lazovich, 1980 Festival Plaza Drive, here today representing some tavern operators that have 15 machines in the bar top. I did reach out to the Gaming Control Board, and I do have it in writing back from them, which I would be happy to share with any of you, and of course, the director, that would allow for temporary, and let me make it very clear, temporary flexibility to encourage and allow for social distancing, that a certain number of bar top machines could be turned off at the bar and instead stand-up machines could be brought in. In no case would 15 machines ever be exceeded or more than 15 machines in operation at any time. Again, it's, as I'm standing here, I'm talking about a tavern owner that has 15 bar top machines today. They're trying to achieve some level of social distancing, and in their particular case, they've looked at bringing in 4 stand-up machines, and they would turn off 4 at the bar to give some separation between all of the machines and still not exceed that. I do have it in writing, and I want to make it extraordinarily clear. I am not asking to change an ordinance. I am not asking to do anything that would not allow for just the temporary flexibility that I know this commission has been so thoughtful about in terms of helping all businesses, not just small businesses. In this case, I'm standing up here representing a small business, looking for some temporary flexibility as we reopen.
Okay. Commissioner Jones, I'll revert back to you.
Ms. Valentine, did you want to respond?
Yes, sir, I do. Commissioner Jones, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Virginia Valentine with the Nevada Resort Association. And I would say it's pretty clear that this resolution does not cover this particular subject. We're caught completely by surprise by this. We think that every other gaming property in the state is going to comply with the distance separations or social distancing with slot machines, and we don't see restricted locations as any different. With that, for the rest of the resolution, I'd just like to say thank you. We've really appreciated working with the county on this resolution and Director Holloway in particular. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, we would object.
Thank you, Ms. Valentine.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Jones, you good? Okay.
And Commissioner Jones, this is Jacqueline Holloway, Director of Business License. I have not seen the opinion yet from the Gaming Control Board, and without fully vetting that and providing a recommendation to this board, an understanding of what the Gaming Control Board is saying, is that at this point, I can't support it right now. I really have to review it and understand it.
Okay. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Well, I have a question because I'm somewhat confused, being that, and I'm tired this morning, so it's not personal to anybody, but I just want to understand this. So gaming is opening across the board on Thursday. So, and my recollection of what the legislature said, you got to have 15 machines. You don't get to pick to have 3 machines. You don't get to pick to have 5 machines. You got to have the full 15. So are then you saying that if you meet your social distancing of 15 machines, which means you're shutting off every other machine, so you have 7 machines, that none of those bars or taverns are allowed to open? Am I simplifying it too much? But that's what I'm hearing, so I need to understand that, because if you're saying that they can't, they got a social distance, but they can't make up the 15 machines, I'm trying to understand the legislative components, because they're not going to have 15 machines available. They're not. If you go to a Winchell's, if you go to any other place, they are going to have 15 machines. So please help me. And
Yes, ma'am.
I'm tired, so help me understand this, what that looks like.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Chair. First of all, they are allowed to open. And
Well,
because
I know they're allowed to open,
yes,
but if they
because
don't
of the
use their
social
machines-
distancing, they must turn off a machine in between each machine. So what that means is that they will still have 15 machines in the bar top. However, they will only have 7 or 8 machines in service for the public, okay, because of that. Unless they can figure out another way of maintaining the social distance without having the stand-up machines. That's the policy issue at this point.
I get, but it's also always been the policy that they go in a bar top.
That is
I
correct.
don't know any other taverns or any, and I just say this because I have taken it on the chin for weeks on end on getting gaming back open, and this topic, it was assumed that everybody was working together, so I'm surprised to hear Virginia be on one side, hear Ms. Slajevich be on the other, because I'm trying to get as many gaming properties open, and the smaller guys had to. Wait till the bigger guys came, and then so that's why I too am kind of caught off guard this morning.
Okay. Commissioner Gibson.
So I have a question for Mary Ann. This ordinance doesn't say anything, or this resolution doesn't say anything at all about this issue that we're debating right this minute. So are we're okay? There's sufficient notice that
You can
it works
discuss
that
it.
we could add this?
Given that it's already been established that there's a lack of notice, you probably wouldn't take action today on that. You'd direct staff.
So it would be good for you to submit to us, Jacqueline, and I appreciate your work here. I mean, the whole thing that you're about and that we're about is making sure that business gets open and succeeds. It's not going to work for us if we open doors but they don't have customers, or they're not sufficient customers to allow them to make their way. And the reason why these bar top machines work for them is it makes up the difference for them. So I get the food stuff, I get all of that. But would you please help us by providing us with a copy of the ordinance, the specific ordinance that we're talking about modifying here? The expectation is that we're likely to see things like this again as they come up. I mean, you can't anticipate everything. And as they come forward, we'll be dealing with requirements that we shouldn't enforce at this time. We've made some decisions already about resorts. We're going to continue to look at everything to make sure that what we do is fair, what we do reaches the people who need it the most. And right now, we need jobs, we need businesses open, we need opportunity. So please get something out to us as quickly as you can.
Yes, sir.
Any other commissioners with any comments? Commissioner Segelblum, anything?
I just wasn't clear. So the law says that you only have to have 15 there, but you don't have to have 15 actually operational. Is that clear, or we don't know that? That is the law.
It just says you have to have 15 in the bar top. You can open without all of them being operational.
Okay. All right.
So what's your pleasure, commissioners, at this time? What's y'all's thoughts on how to move forward? Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a question on the 120 days from March 17th. So give or take a day, that takes us to July 15th. Would we anticipate, as written, extending that 120 days? Is that a wait and see?
That would be a wait and see. We would issue the waivers, and we are planning to issue the waivers this week. And as soon as possible. We used the 120 days from March 17th because that was the language we used for the resort reopening. So we wanted to be consistent in our application.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair.
So I have a second question, Jacqueline. So this waiver process is going to go on the website today, and they have to have it before they can open in Clark County, or are they allowed to open, and I guess, Marianne, this is a question for you, are they allowed to open and submit the paperwork? It's just all ironic to me because I asked Jacqueline on March 30th that we do this so that people could plan, and here I feel like we're under the gun doing it, so I need to understand this waiver process for anybody because the phones are going to ring, and do they have to have that before they can open to see the plans, or what does that look like, Marianne?
Some businesses are going to be able to open without a waiver. If they are unable to open, meet the requirements, and they look at this resolution, think that they can do it under this resolution, then they will have to file for a waiver.
Well, I'm just going to say that it's going to be 1% of those businesses that can open, because I've been talking to the businesses across the country, across the state, so I'm just perplexed. This is the very thing that I asked us to do March 30th with all the other businesses, and yet we decide to do it 2 days before. So is there a level of expectation that this, if it's passed by this board, that it goes up on the website this afternoon?
Yes. And there is not an expectation that businesses cannot open without a waiver. We are very open to that, of businesses opening.
I'm just saying, Jacqueline, I'd be careful with saying that on the record because I've been getting the phone calls all weekend long, hundreds of them. I'm happy to call you every time someone calls me. But these folks, we have worked super hard to ensure that there was a level of consistency across the state. We have worked very hard to ensure that people knew what the rules were. So I'd be careful about picking and choosing rules because it's been the problem for months, and I'm trying to have a level of consistency. And as the chair of the LEAP, I can't have consistency in my own county. I got bigger problems.
Okay, so I think there is a level of confusion that we have going on here on the board, and I guess the question would be, how do y'all want to move forward? Anybody want to take a stab at a motion, or do we need some more legal clarity from our DA's office in terms of, because I guess one of the things, Ms. Lazarevich, to your point, and if you come back up to the microphone, one of the things I know about you is you work very hard and you do your due diligence out there. But if I'm hearing from the Resorts Association that this is the first time they've heard of it, and even from business licenses, they've not even heard of this or have seen what the Gaming Control Board have said as well, this puts us in a really awkward position.
Sure, I understand that. I'll start by just apologizing. It was my understanding that there was an effort to make sure that when it related to anything dealing with gaming, those rules were coming from the state, so that you wouldn't have individual jurisdictions doing something and not have that consistency statewide. And that goes for restricted gaming operators as well as non-restricted gaming operators. My office did put this request in writing to the Business License Department when they asked for the or certain code sections to be waived, or for lack of a better way of saying it, temporarily. So we did put that out there. I have had a conversation also with the director on it. But again, I took it as the state was going to be the one making the decision on how these properties can open. And so I concentrated my efforts at the state, and the absence, in my opinion, from it being in this resolution, nothing in the resolution dealt with gaming, which to me was the signal that we're turning to the state. And if the state is saying this is how these properties can open, then this is how these properties can open.
Okay. So with that being said, Mary Miller, what's the thought as far as how it's agendized today for this board's purposes? Because I believe there's a little apprehension in terms of how do I even make a motion on, based on what we're reading that's listed on our agenda, how do we even phrase a motion to address any of this?
Well, first I would note that local jurisdictions have always maintained autonomy and how they can always be stricter than the state gaming rules. So I don't know why you didn't follow up with the director, but the resolution that's before you is a result of many, many conversations out there in the industry. I would hate to see you guys not go forward in adopting it, because a lot of people are relying on it being in place so that they can open. If you guys want to direct staff to pursue Ms. Laza's request, we can bring that back at a future meeting.
Okay. Okay, having said that, what y'all's thought, Commissioner Jones?
In light of the concerns with notice, that would be my motion to approve agenda item number 57 and direct staff to come back with a resolution to address the issue that is before us with regards to countertop machines.
Okay. Y'all vote the motion. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, cast your votes, please. And post. That motion carries.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you all so very much, and I'll turn the gavel back over to our chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item, Yolanda.
We can now move to the public hearings section of your agenda. We are now on item 51, which is to conduct a public hearing and approve, adopt, and authorize the chair to sign an ordinance levying assessments for Special Improvement District number 97B, the Las Vegas Boulevard beautification maintenance between Sahara Avenue and Mandalay Bay Road.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anybody here wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the hearing. Close the public hearing. Commissioner Weekly.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, I'll move that the bill be introduced at the May 19, 2020 meeting, be finally adopted as an ordinance.
Okay, you've heard the motion on the floor. Any discussion? Please cast your vote. That motion passes.
Item number 52 is to conduct a public hearing and approve, adopt, and authorize the chair to sign an ordinance levying assessments for Special Improvement District 114B, Las Vegas Boulevard South Strip maintenance between Mandalay Bay and Russell Road.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Turn it over to Commissioner Weekly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move that the bill be introduced at the May 19th. Is that correct? May 19th?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, no. We're not in May.
That the bill
June.
that the bill be introduced at the May 19, 2020?
So you need to say the word that,
Okay.
the bill introduced.
Was that the bill that was introduced? Okay, I'll insert a that. How about that? Okay. All right, thank you. Randy, just when we were on a roll, man, you got to put the that in there, okay? All right. I'll move that the bill that was introduced at the May 19, 2020 meeting be finally adopted as an ordinance.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Please cast your vote. That motion passes.
Item number 53 is to conduct a public hearing and approve, adopt, and authorize the chair to sign an ordinance levying assessments for Special Improvement District 126B, Boulder Highway strip maintenance along Boulder Highway from Interstate 515 to the intersection of Desert Inn Road and Lamb Boulevard, and along Boulder Highway from Flamingo Road to approximately 900 feet south of East Sun Valley Drive.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it over to Commissioner Weekly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move that the bill that was introduced at the May 19, 2020 meeting be finally adopted as an ordinance.
Okay, you've heard the motion from Commissioner Weekly. Any further discussion? Please cast your vote. And that motion passes.
Item number 54 is to conduct a public hearing and approve, adopt, and authorize the chair to sign an ordinance levying assessments for Special Improvement District Number 162B, Laughlin Lagoon Waterfront Maintenance Project in the unincorporated township of Laughlin, Nevada.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Turn it over to Commissioner Weekly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move that the bill that was introduced at the May 19, 2020 meeting be finally adopted as an ordinance.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. That motion passes.
Commissioners, we can move back to the business items section of your agenda. Item number 58 is to receive a report on the recommended use of coronavirus relief funds for the economic recovery programs. Commissioners, we do have a presentation that will be presented by Director Coleman. The board did direct staff at the last board meeting to come back with a program that would assist our small businesses using those coronavirus relief funds. You also may recall that the board approved the set aside of $21.5 million for this purpose. So Ms. Coleman has provided for you a recommendation or staff recommendation in terms of how those dollars can be spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Shawnee Coleman, Director of Community and Economic Development for Clark County. Want to just kind of talk about opportunities to support small businesses in Clark County. As all of us know, as the pandemic hit, a number of our non-essential businesses were closed, and because they were closed, they lacked opportunity to generate revenue and to operate. A couple of things happened during that time, one of them being that the federal government stepped in. The federal government put billions of dollars into programs, but specifically for small business through the Small Business Administration, there were two programs that were directly available to small businesses. And so the first of those programs was the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or EIDL. There are two components to this particular program. One being a $10,000 grant or an advance that someone could apply for. The next being an actual loan that they could apply for up to $2 million. Throughout this process, SBA, actually, there was such a large response, they made a change to the program and they limited the loan amount to about $150,000. So you can see for Nevada, as of May 29th, we have received about 8,300 loans at the value of about $704 million. The next program that was put together is something called the Paycheck Protection Plan, or PPP, what it's frequently referred to. This was to help businesses support their workers, to help people stay employed. And so basically, a business could request a certain allotment of money. Again, this was a loan. However, this loan, a portion of it was forgivable. If the business was able to utilize 75% of that loan for salaries, then a portion of the loan was forgivable. The information that we have to date for Nevada is about 37,000 loans have gone out at about $4 billion to the state of Nevada. That's the smallest increment. I tried to get information specific to Clark County. However, they don't break it down that far. So with the federal money, the municipalities, as well as Clark County, were able to receive certain funds. And so the municipalities are able to utilize those funds. And so I just want to talk about what's happening in our region. City of Las Vegas launched a program about 2 weeks ago. They were a direct recipient of CARES Act funding. And so they put $4 million into a program that they call a business preparedness grant that allows a business up to $4,000 to pay for things like PPE, if they need to do facility retrofits or other expenses that they need to reopen. Their program is between 3 and 25 employees, so it does not cover sole proprietors. The next program is Henderson. Henderson their council approved $434,000 in CDBG funds for a small business program. They have not initiated that program at this time. Also, North Las Vegas, again, their council has approved $722,000 in CDBG funds for small business loan. This is a forgivable loan. They're calling it a loan, but what they've stated is if the business is in good standing for a minimum of 2 years, then they will forgive that. And I also want to make a note about the CDBG dollars. So CDBG, we currently use that for social service and social support. It is an avenue for economic development. However, the national requirements or stipulations regarding CDBG still remain intact, even though this was specific to coronavirus. And so it requires the funds to be utilized for a owner who is low to moderate income, a business that has employees that are low to moderate income, or a business in a census tract that's low to moderate income. So at the last board meeting, the commission, you guys provided us with about $21.5 million to establish small business support programs for Clark County. And so what I've done is we've created a proposed budget here. It outlines 3 specific programs, which I will go into detail, and then provides some information regarding administrative uses and opportunities for future programs. So the first program that we have today is a small business stabilization grant. This is the most flexible of the 3 programs. This will allot a business up to 20 employees. This also covers sole proprietors, so we do not have a floor on the number of employees, just a maximum, up to $10,000 in working capital. And so some of the eligibility requirements are that they must have a Clark County business license, not received any federal grants or loans. One of the things that we've heard from businesses, especially in Nevada, is that they didn't have the ability to access some of the federal money, the SBA money, and so we want to tap into those businesses first. We want to give those businesses an opportunity to have access to some type of support and funding. So we are asking that businesses that apply for this program, that they have not received any SBA funding. A business has to be in business at least 6 months prior to March 15th, have a financial hardship, and then no federal or state liens. And so this particular program actually looks at a scoring. We wanted to create the most objective way to provide businesses with grant dollars. And so working with our consultants, we were able to identify a scoring mechanism that we think is uniform and can be fairly applied across all businesses. You will see here it'll look at the number of years they've been in business, how many employees they have. If they're a disadvantaged business, we give bonus points or we give extra points for disadvantaged businesses. And we are using Clark County's standard definition of disadvantaged businesses, and you will see those listed there. We look at gross receipts, whether or not the business is profitable. That can be somewhat subjective, but we're hoping as part of the application packet, we will be asking for financial documents to support this. And so if a business so hopefully we will be able to determine and not just take the word from the business. And then we're looking at debt. So the goal is that the businesses that score in the top portion of this, it's a maximum of 30 points. Businesses between 21 and 30 points will receive funding up to $10,000 to support working capital. And I'm happy I can go through the whole presentation or all the programs, or if there are questions specific to each individual program, I can take those that way as well.
Commissioners, what's your pleasure at this time? You all have any questions that you'd like to ask? Commissioner Gibson?
If I could, thank you.
Yes.
You and I discussed this, but one of the concerns is as the word is out, and it is out, I've been getting calls from folks who are anxious and interested in pursuing these loans or these grants. And I just wondered, is there something in the federal grant that requires that one of the elements of the scoring be that they be a disadvantaged business?
I'm not familiar with the federal grant application, so I can't speak to whether or not it requires it to be a disadvantaged business or not.
The reason I ask that is that you had briefed me, and I saw that was there. So when I got these calls, I probably had, well, I don't know how many of them know my cell number, but 15 or 20 of them know my cell number. And I asked them if they were a disadvantaged business. And in 2 cases, they were. Mm-hmm. And in the rest of the cases, they were not. But they continue to insist that they've got a major problem and they need help, and they were not successful in securing, because the 2 questions I really asked, I knew more or less what was going on, but I didn't know if they had the PPP, had had success with a small business loan or forgivable loan program. I asked that, and in the case of the whether they were disadvantaged business. So I'm concerned. Now, when I look at the scoring, you say approved grants for businesses scoring 21 to 30. So that might mean that as long as you get 21 points, you qualify and we fund.
That's the goal.
It might also mean that if we had however many, $4.5 million worth of 30s, you wouldn't be funded if we had, we'll fund all the 30s first, then the 29s and so forth, then we get down to those who didn't have the points. And so I'm really concerned about this because on the one hand, I recognize the challenges that DBEs have. And that's the reason why we have programs, and that's why we adhere to strict rules and enforce them. And it makes all the sense in the world, and I've supported that kind of thing forever. This is just one where I just want to make sure that I'm not going to argue this point if there's something in the way that those funds came to us that defined them as funds really destined for folks that are DBEs. But if not, I worry a little bit about foreclosing the opportunity for those who may not be, but who have exactly the same challenges in the economic sense, given the marketplace and the closures and all the rest of it. That's my comment.
And Commissioner, I want to address that. That's why we're using a number of questions and a score, so we understand that every business is unique and they're going to be in a different situation. So as you see here, so a business that's 2 years old is not going to get the same amount of points as a business that's 10 years old. And so while disadvantaged business is on here, it is not the sole determination on the scoring. There's a number of factors that will go into that. So this is a cumulative process and not just looking at any one question.
Thank you. Commissioner Shegerboom, I saw you.
So I guess we haven't gotten there yet, but my understanding is one of the proposals is that this would be first come, first serve. And so have you thought about how that would work?
We're going to talk about that.
The recommendation is that it is first come, first serve. And the reason why is because it allows us to get the money out on the street faster. As applications roll in, it allows us to, if they meet the objective criteria that this board has identified, then we can fund the applications as they come in. Money can go out onto the street. There is an alternative way to move through this process, and that is to establish an application acceptance window, whether it be a week or 2 weeks, whatever it is. What would happen in that process is that we would open up for a period of time, accept all applications during that period of time, and then we would score all the applications at one time, and then we would determine which of the applications to fund, and then those businesses would be funded at one time. So obviously if we have a window, we have to wait for that window to close. We have to wait for us to review all of the applications before any determinations are made, and then we'll have to pay them after that process is completed. So that will take a little bit of time, and it'll be longer before we can get the money to the businesses out on the street.
How about something like open it up for a week and then close it and then have a random drawing, so that it wouldn't be any more difficult as far as picking the winners, but it wouldn't be like the person who was all set to go the first day versus the person who filed the 7th day.
So that's something, commissioners, to add to the equation here, a possible drawing, if you will, if we go with the second option of an application acceptance, or even if we go with the first come, first serve. I don't know. We'll add that to the equation and discussion here and see what everybody feels. Let's go to Commissioner Naft, and then we'll go to Jones.
Sure. Just a point of clarification. You'd indicated it's up to $10,000. We're not considering variable amounts, right? The grant is for $10,000?
It goes up to $10,000 because one of the things that we recognize is not every business may need $10,000. We will look at their financials and say if they request $5,000 and their financials support that, then we will support that. If they request $10,000 and their financials support that, then we will do that. So we are allowing the business to help us with some guidance on the amount of funds that they need, but we are also looking at financials to support that.
We don't think that anyone's going to not request the maximum amount, right?
Look, there may be, very small businesses out there that, only need $5,000 or $6,000, and so we wanted to provide that opportunity to those businesses.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Naft. Commissioner Jones.
I'll hold off, and now I was going to respond to Commissioner Segerblum on his ideas, but I think that's probably best left till after the 3 different programs.
Okay. Director Coleman, now you want to continue?
Sure.
All right.
And so the next program we have is really about public health. We recognize and understand that in order for our economy to be healthy, the places where they're operating need to be safe and healthy as well. And so this particular program is a reimbursement grant up to $5,000 for businesses that need to do facility modifications. So if they need to install plexiglass, or if they want to install hand sanitizer stations, if they need to do a purchase of PPE, screening tools, they want to buy thermometers so they can screen customers or employees, if they want to install no-touch doors, and also training. Training is important as well, and so we want to provide that opportunity if they need to hire or purchase training software for their employees during this new normal. We want to be able to support that. Again, this is really about public safety and public spaces. So the eligibility requirements are generally the same, but there are some differences that I want to point out. This particular one, you are required to have a commercial location, obviously, because this is about public safety. We dropped the requirement regarding the length of business. We want businesses operating safely as possible. In this particular instance, you only had to have been in business since March 1st. Again, this is a reimbursement grant. So as a reimbursement grant, businesses are required to spend the dollars. They will be required to turn in receipts and or paid invoices showing what they've actually paid for any of these items. We will reimburse based on the receipts and the paid invoices that we receive, and then we will cover expenses starting March 15th. So we will even backdate this. So March 15th, you needed to buy PPE, we will cover that. March 15th, you bought a piece of plexiglass, we will cover that as well.
Sure.
So with that, I will stop, and if there are any
Yes,
questions regarding this particular
So
program.
I know that in my briefing with Director Coleman, it had been brought up apparently from other commissioners as well with concerns in reference to home-based businesses. And so I'd love for us to maybe make a note and see if how does everybody feel about a home-based business being under the non-eligible business category. That's number one. But Director Coleman, I also wanted to go back in category number one, where we talked about, I think convenience stores were not eligible. They were in the non-eligible category as well. I wanted to, and I want to come back and maybe entertain that as well when we circle back to all of the questions at the end. But commissioners, do y'all have any questions on this particular category at this time in reference to what's been presented to us? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the next one.
All right, and the final program is a business or commercial rental assistance program. This is the largest of the three programs simply because this particular program supports two businesses. This program would require the tenant and the landlord to work together, but what it would do, it would cover up to $10,000 in back rent. That funding would be paid directly to the landlord, and so similar eligibility requirements, have a Clark County business license, receiving no federal grants or dollars. The two programs that I mentioned, the retrofit that we just talked about and this particular one, rental assistance, if you received dollars from the first stabilization grant, you would not be eligible for these dollars. The first grant is really working capital. It provides a business with the most amount of flexibility. They can utilize that $10,000 grant either to cover rent or to pay for their own retrofits. And so because these programs are very specific, if they have received money through the stabilization grant, they would not be eligible for rental assistance or the retrofit. Again, no federal, state, or county tax liens. Obviously, because this is commercial rental assistance, they must have a physical commercial location. The same requirement, they must have been in business for 6 months, have an actual hardship. Because this is specific to a lease, we've added a few items. They must have a valid commercial lease that does not expire before December 31st of this year. We want to make sure that we are not funding a business that their lease is due to expire anyway. And then finally, it's hard to read on here. The landlord must be willing to participate. So one of the things that we were cognizant of is in real estate law, landlords are not required to take partial payments. And so we recognize that the $10,000 may not cover the full amount of the back rent. We are still willing to pay it, but if we do, we want to ask the landlord and have the landlord agree that they're willing to take the partial payment. And then we also want them to agree that if they understand it's a partial payment, that they are not going to take the $10,000 payment and then turn around and evict the tenant for any remaining balance left over. So we're asking the landlords in this particular situation, if they receive payment, that they either disengage from any eviction actions that they have against their tenant, or they not engage in any eviction actions for the next 90 days after payment is received.
Okay. That concludes your presentation.
There's more. Those are the three programs. There's some additional information in here regarding timing. So the Small Business Stabilization Grant, that will likely be the first one to roll out. Should the board approve that today, it'll probably take us about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit less, to finalize the application and get everything loaded to the county's website so we can start accepting applications. The two others will follow after that, usually 2 to 3 weeks. We want to use the stabilization grant if there are any bugs or anything like that. That's why we're not rolling out all 3 of them at the same time. Ways of getting the information out. Obviously, we would update the information. The application would be available on our website. We would do press releases, social media. We'll probably do a spot on Channel 4. We will probably do some direct mailers using our business licensing database. All of you obviously would have the opportunity to place this in your district newsletters. We have regional partners. The Small Business Development Center, LBGEA, we have our Chambers of Commerce, and then business licensing courtesy visits. So we plan to produce flyers, and as Ms. Holloway's, Director Holloway's team is out visiting with businesses, they can hand out this information to them as well. I want to talk a little bit about technical assistance. We were able to establish a partnership with the Small Business Development Center at UNLV. And so one of the things we know from our consultant is that some small businesses sometimes have challenges filling out these types of applications. Our application specifically is only about 2 pages long, but we understand there are pieces that they will need to include in their application packet, like a W-9 and things. And so we've partnered with the Small Business Development Center to help businesses move through that process. And so working with our consultants, they say about 50% of businesses turn in a valid and completed application. We want to increase that number as best as we possibly can. And so this partnership will allow the small business to have a direct person or contact, a business counselor that they can work with as they're completing and filling out their application. And then finally, one of the things that we wanted to look at is recognizing that during the pandemic, some of our disadvantaged businesses were some of the hardest hit. And so we, in conjunction with VCAUS, which is a formal partnership between the Latin Chamber of Commerce, the Urban Chamber of Commerce, they have since added in the Asian Chamber of Commerce, looking at a program that will allow that conglomeration to sort of underwrite funds specifically called out for disadvantaged businesses. We are suggesting a capitalization of about 10%. As we've discussed, our general program does allow an advantage or a boost for disadvantaged businesses already in there. This would be adding to working specifically with the VCAUS brand. We would work with them on an application that is very similar to our Small Business Stabilization Grant, allowing them to underwrite, send that information directly to the county, and the county would support that small business directly. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, Commissioners, you've heard the report, and we'll go down to the end and start with Commissioner Naft. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I guess a couple of comments I would have is if the goal is to sort of do the most good, in terms of, in response to the questions about home-based businesses, it seems to me, one, I don't think we should offer that funding for the PPE for home-based businesses or the rental assistance. But as far as the stabilization, I would seem to be fit to keep it on the non-eligible list. But then I might, in response to your comments about sort of the scale of the grant amount, would there be any appetite to lower the amount to $5,000, help more people? If we have leftover money at the end, great, we can reopen this, but at least then we can get more dollars out quickly to more people at least. Or maybe that $10,000 grant award there's some science behind that or some math to why that amount makes the most sense for stabilization.
I'm open to the suggestions from the board. I will say $10,000, that's kind of been the threshold that we've seen at the federal level. That's what we see other cities are doing. Seattle did $10,000. Henderson's program is $10,000. Dallas is $10,000. I will say that Henderson's program is more of a tiered approach based on the number of employees. That is the number, there is a threshold. So in order to get the full $10,000, you have to have, I think it's 15 to 20 employees, and then they scale it down based on that. We could definitely put something like that in place if that's the desire of the board.
Okay. Commissioner Knapp, that's okay for the moment? Okay, for the moment. There you go. All right, here we go. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you for presentation and the tremendous amount of work that you've put into this, Ms. Coleman. With regards to the small business rental assistance program, what type of paperwork would you envision in terms of ensuring that the landlord didn't evict for the 90-day period?
I think we're still working out the details on that, but I think it's probably just something like a one-page letter agreement saying that if it's a partial payment, I understand it's a partial payment, and I understand that I will agree not to take any eviction action against this particular tenant for 90 days. I don't envision it being anything much longer than that. We just want to, if we're going to support the tenant and the landlord by giving them an injection of cash, we want to even that playing field and not give the landlord the ability to evict the tenant or take any action on the tenant. The goal, hopefully, was if there are additional money, or if the tenant owed additional money, the hope would be that the landlord and the tenant could work out something over a period of time. Say the tenant owed $20,000. If we were able to cover that $10,000, the remaining balance, we would hope that the landlord and the tenant would work out some agreement where they could maybe stretch out payments over a period of time. But we want to provide the tenant with a little bit of cover if the landlord is going to take the funds.
Okay. I know that there was I'd spoken as a result of the chair's request the last meeting. I spoke with Ms. Buckley with regards to legal aid's requests for potential funding for a small business assistance, legal assistance program. I don't know if you've talked personally with her. I know Mr. Wells certainly was in communication, if we were going to do something like that, that would fall within the future programs and contingency portion of your proposed budget?
Correct.
Okay. And the same would go for, I understand that the LVGEA had similarly requested some dollars, if available, for their business information network support for small businesses that they've been doing?
That is correct.
Okay.
So we put that contingency in there for the board for future programs, exactly what you're talking about, whether it be legal aid, LVGEA, or if this board decides that we need to capitalize the programs with more funds, that option is there. Another option is we can hold that money back, and if it were decided to do this on a first come first served basis, there would be an opportunity to recapitalize programs if the money moved out relatively fast. And so there's a couple of options, and that you have there. There are other programs. I know I've talked to some of you, and I sent you some information about a gift card program that's very interesting. So there may be future programs. We're getting new information all the time about things that are innovative, that our businesses are interested in, and so the future programs and contingency is there for that reason.
Okay, and just to reiterate, these CARES Act dollars, they have to be spent by December.
They have
regardless
to be,
of what program it is, they got to be
correct.
spent.
December,
okay.
Yes,
all right.
They have to be incurred by December 31st.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Brown? Was it thumbs up? No? Okay, all right, moving on. Anybody down here on this end? Yes, Commissioner Sisolak. Oh, did y'all hear that?
Was that a Sisolak comment?
Yeah. Second room, Sisolak.
Same.
Okay, yeah.
I apologize. As you know, I'm not Mr. Sisolak. Obviously we could tweak this and do all kinds of things, but let me just make a couple of comments. First, if I were doing it, I would do the PPE one first, because that seems to be the simplest one, and the least, that's just a lot of money just going out quickly to people. With respect to the capitalization, the $4.5 million one, I like Commissioner Knapp's suggestion of 5,000 more people, but I also am concerned about just doing it first come, first serve, because I know a lot of the chambers are already out there talking to people, and you're going to end up with chamber people right there at the first minute. So if there's some way to as I said, cut it off and then have a random drawing, or maybe split it up into have a first period and then a second period, somewhere to give other people a chance, because I think a lot of the people that would want this grant are probably the least able to provide the material up front. And if we're working with UNLV, maybe we could help on that. And the final thing is, with respect to the rental assistance, I think it does fall in with what Barbara Buckley talked about, and I would like to see if we could work with her to set up a program, because some of this is going to be a lawyer getting in there and trying to negotiate and making sure that the terms are in writing of what the landlord's willing to do. And I think we could make the money go farther if there's a lawyer involved in that process, which is what she had talked about. So I would discourage, I would like to see, we don't approve the details of that program. I like the concept, but I'd like to further flesh that out before I approve that.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Jones.
I would be ready to go ahead and form a motion if there's not more discussion.
Well, okay, before we go to a motion, let me ask, Director Coleman, on the first presentation, I saw something dealing with convenience stores. Yes. How does that kind of parallel like a small market? And I want to use Mario's as an example, although it's in the city of Las Vegas. When you look at some of the underserved neighborhoods that don't have grocery stores within X amount of miles, but then you have those small stores that may, I don't know if they're looked upon as small markets, or some can be even considered a convenience store. One of the things stores like that do for neighborhoods like that, they help provide those type of necessities and needs that many folks who live in some of these underserved neighborhoods that don't have transportation. Again, like for years, I remember being at the city, and I remember when Bond's grocery store left the neighborhood, and for years we discussed there weren't a grocery store within a 5-mile radius.
Right.
I know that Commissioner Knapp have had to deal with that, and we're having a discussion on that as well. How does something like that qualify or be able to make this list? Because again, that's how Mario's had to go and change its name and put market on there so that it wouldn't be looked upon as a convenience store type setting.
Right. Convenience stores we typically are talking about are like 7-Elevens and those stop and shop types of places. Traditionally, they charge higher fees for their foods and their services. Convenience stores in this particular instances were allowed to stay open. And so they did not have the same negative impact. And so generally, just because of this list is not a an exhaustive list, and we can certainly amend the list. I know Madam Chair had some amendments, and we were able to take care of that for her. But if convenience stores is something that you want to include in that process, we can definitely do that. Generally, what happens in the economic development realm, there are certain types of businesses that you don't incentivize, and so convenience stores generally is one of those, but it's not a hard and fast rule.
Sure.
And if this board says, hey, we want convenience stores to participate in this program, then we will have convenience stores participate in this program.
I think I'm more so rallying for the smaller market type place.
And they would be eligible for this.
Okay.
Is what convenience stores we're talking about are the
Sure.
7-Elevens and the Stop and Shops
Sure.
and that type of thing.
Thank you for that clarity. And then secondly, home-based businesses. You know, at one point there may have been a business that resided in brick and mortar, but because of hardships, they had to resort to taking their business in home. But it's listed in the non-eligible category.
We had that question. So some of the eligibility requirements are different across the grants. So originally, we did have home-based business as a non-eligible business under the stabilization grant. However, we've removed that to so the board could provide direction. There were questions about if I'm a CPA and I just happen to be working from home, doesn't mean that I'm less of a business because I have a brick and mortar location. And so whatever direction the board would like to provide on the stabilization grant regarding home-based businesses. The other two grants, we left off home-based businesses just because of the type of grants that they were. The retrofit grant is about being in a public facility where there are lots of bodies, and so that particular grant, it really didn't make sense to cover home-based because we're talking about buying PPE and thermometers and things like that for the business. And then the other one is a commercial rental assistance. Again, it's for a commercial location, and so those two don't really lend themselves to home-based businesses, but the stabilization grant can lend itself to home-based businesses if this board would like to provide some direction on that. To Commissioner Naft's question, if you wanted to lessen the amount for a home-based business, we could do that. We could make a home-based business that applies $5,000, and if you're in a commercial location, you have the option to go up to 10. So the board has the flexibility here. We can design these programs any way that we want.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I know that you made some modifications to several of the categories. I'll turn the mic back over to you if you wanted to add that. Commissioner Jones he's ready to make a motion, but I also wanted to put out there, I appreciate having worked with the chambers. Commissioner Jones, thank you for just kind of really revving some things up in terms of the business community. But I also, too, Madam Chair, would maybe like to see if there's any appetite from this board, because with the chambers, Asian, Latin, and Urban Chamber of Commerce, with them starting this VCOS program, one of the things that I respect about it is it's a program that went through the state legislature. You all were lobbyists. You all seen, many of the legislators came on board to support this, to help many of those disadvantaged and minority-owned businesses. And look at the number that's here. I know what they asked of you was a substantial amount to run a program, and because of the restrictions and responsibilities that fall back on Clark County, this whole application process, I agree with the Director Coleman, we need to keep it in-house to make sure, because if anything goes wrong, the county's going to be on the hook for anything. Not to say that anyone out there would do anything not right or legal, but I think taking ownership and keeping it in-house is probably the right thing to do. But I would like to maybe entertain some conversation, Madam Chair, to talk about this $450,000. I'd probably like to see that number increase just a bit more, because they have been tried and tested and have had major positive results in terms of working with a lot of disadvantaged businesses. And so talking with Director Coleman, she put a number out there, but it is something that's optional, and if this board is inclined, we can have that opportunity to submit another number. So I'd like for you all to take that into consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Weekly. And as you all know, I've focused on the other side of the pandemic, so I've turned it over to Commissioner Jones and you all to decide. So, Commissioner Jones, you have a motion?
I do. It's going to be kind of long, but I did want to clarify real fast. I know we've had this discussion in the last few days. Can you just clarify? You provided the information with regards to what other jurisdictions are doing. Is there, under your proposal, is there a recommendation as to whether it be available to businesses that have their locations in incorporated jurisdictions?
The recommendation would be to focus on unincorporated Clark County. Economic development services in Southern Nevada are provided at the municipal level. And what we want to do is even the playing field for the businesses in unincorporated Clark County who do not have access to the municipal programs. So the businesses in unincorporated Clark County cannot access City of Las Vegas, Henderson, or North Las Vegas programs. We also want to try to address the opportunity of double dipping. And so as the cities continue to roll out these programs and potentially other programs, businesses in unincorporated Clark County not having access to those, on a regional approach, they would be competing against businesses that do have access to programs in incorporated cities. And so the recommendation would be right now to focus on unincorporated Clark County.
Understood. All right, so my motion would, again, thank you, Ms. Coleman, for your tremendous amount of work on this. My recommendation would be to take the suggestion of Commissioner Naft and reduce the grant amount for the small business stabilization grant maximum to $5,000. That will double the number of businesses that potentially are eligible.
And just for clarification, is that $5,000 for all businesses, and so it'll be up to $5,000 instead of 10?
Correct.
Okay.
The businesses could still seek the small business rental assistance. So in theory, they could.
Well, this particular one, they would not be eligible
sorry.
for. So if we're going to change the amount, that may be an additional consideration for you, is making them eligible for all three. Because this was working capital, we were trying to, and they had the most flexibility. The other two were very specific. If they receive funds under the stabilization grant, they would not be eligible for the retrofit or the rental assistance.
Chime in, Commissioner Naft?
Sure. So, and maybe the best way to ask this is, can you talk through the timing, since these are all being released at different times?
So originally the plan was that we would release the stabilization grant first because that was the most flexible of all of the programs. We wanted to get businesses an infusion of cash as fast as we possibly could. That's why the recommendation for me was that we do that one first. And then the other two would follow 2 to 3 weeks after.
If it were reduced to $5,000 and we don't get as much, I think we will get lots of interest, but if that's not the case, could we do a second tranche for the stabilization funds in the future if the amount is reduced?
We have that allotment of funds available for future programs and contingency. So if we ran through the 4.5 as the proposed capitalization on this grant, even at $5,000, the contingency and the future programs money is there to say, hey, we want to put an extra $500,000 into this program.
All right, so my suggestion would be to go to leave it at up to $10,000 for businesses that have more than 5 employees, between 5 and 20 employees, and cap it at $5,000 for businesses that have less than 5 employees.
Commissioner Jones, does that include home-based business?
Yes. No changes to the small business stabilization grant. I'm sorry, no changes to the criteria. No changes to the retrofit or rental assistance support. I would ask that with regards to the small business rental assistance program that the Legal Aid Society of Southern Nevada be a critical partner in working with the small businesses and the landlords on the agreements. Frankly, that will make your job easier than trying to do those negotiations yourself with your staff of 0. With regards to how applications are taken in and selected, I think that it makes the most sense to give a short window of probably 5 to 7 business days for applications once a particular program is opened. That will, I think, make sure that it is fair and it's not just those businesses that are most capable of navigating through the criteria, and then the NDC and your office can work together to do a review all at once.
Okay.
In addition, my recommendation would be that the Legal Aid Center have available to it up to $400,000 for reimbursement of its support for small businesses. Of course, that would have to have been expenses would have to be submitted to your office expended prior to the deadline for CARES Act, which is the end of December. With regards to the LBGA's request, similarly, the amount that I would suggest would be $150,000. That is up to, and can only be used for reimbursement of expenses directly related to support for small businesses and not for seeking out businesses from other jurisdictions.
Okay.
And with regards to VCAUS, I would suggest that we raise that from a potential 450 to a potential of 750. If you are comfortable with the criteria, we don't want a situation in which there is a lack of criteria and too much subjectivity that goes into the process.
We will work with them on their application process to get it more in line with our stabilization grant. We will allow them to brand and use their application, and we will support, allow them to help underwrite, and we will support their applications through that process.
Okay. And with regards to jurisdictions, my recommendation would be to allow for businesses that are located in incorporated jurisdictions within Clark County that did not receive CARES Act dollars to apply for these programs, with the caveat that they do not double dip. They cannot seek out funds from their own jurisdiction and also seek dollars from Clark County.
So just want to clarify on the jurisdictional question, there really isn't a way for us to control whether or not they double dip. So if we're going to allow them to open or allow this to be a regional outside of those who did not receive CARES Act funding, there's no way, because the cities offered their own programs, and that's controlled by their elected bodies, there's no way for me to ensure that someone does not double dip.
And we will make it that no business may apply unless their jurisdiction submits that information to your office. And until they do, and until they're willing to do that and coordinate with your office, then those businesses aren't going to be eligible.
Okay.
So, Commissioners, it'll be essentially on an honor system. So that's as long as we understand that, and that's fine. I just want to put that out that it will be difficult, but recognizing the direction that you've given, or the direction the board is asking us is that it will be on an honor system. So we will make sure that businesses understand that.
And Commissioner, one of the things through JAG, when we go through the JAG application process, in that application, that question is asked, have you received and where have you received additional funding from? And when you see their financials that they're required to submit, you have that opportunity to see if they've applied for funding other places. And so we've denied applications. I know Commissioner Segelblum, this was his first year serving on that JAG program, where Commissioner June Kiliani have done it for a number of years. We've denied applicants because they've tried to double dip like that before. So to your point, it is an honor system, but there is a tracking mechanism that you can, when Director Coleman requests their financials, you have that opportunity to see if they've gotten, if they've submitted honest financials, you have that opportunity to see where they've gotten their funding from.
And Commissioner Weekly, excuse me, Shawnee,
Sorry.
Commissioner Weekly, we probably maybe should add a question asking if they anticipate asking from other cities, just because they can come to us first and truthfully honest that they have not received funds from other cities, but we can probably add a question on there if they anticipate asking for funding from other cities.
And we can certainly provide the information to the other cities of any grants we provide to them so that they don't double dip on the other side. So, and just to be clear, 95% of the people that live in my district are in unincorporated Clark County. So that concession is not one that is going to be beneficial to people that live in District F, but I want to make sure that we are working collaboratively with our other jurisdictions who are all trying to work together in order to provide and support the small businesses throughout Clark County.
Okay, does that complete your motion? Okay, any comments or questions?
Commissioners, just to make sure we're all clear, so of the future programs and contingency funds that are on page 4, the $2,040,000, based on Commissioner Jones's motion, that total amount, we would be taking away $1.3 million from that amount. Okay. And also, just also for clarification on one of these slides where the eligibility requirements, also based on Commissioner Jones' motion, the eligibility requirements state that must have an active Clark County business license. Obviously, that is not applicable if they are within another city.
We can have it be, if you're in unincorporated Clark County, they have an active Clark County business license or an associated active business license in their jurisdiction.
Okay, you've heard the motion by Commissioner.
Can I just clarify one thing?
Mm-hmm.
So if we have it open for 5 days and 1,000 people applying that 5 days, is it going to be the people that filed the first day? Does it go in that order? Or?
The goal, if we have them open for a period of time, the goal is to wait until we close the application window and then review all of the applications at one time. So it would not be on a rolling basis.
And my understanding from your motion, Commissioner Jones, is you included in there a random drawing, assuming? What was the?
Well, with regards to the Small Business Stabilization Grant, certainly the criteria come into play. Beyond that, if there were more applications in that program than there are dollars, then it's going to have to go to random drawing, and then the same would go for the retrofit and the rental assistance. My recollection, Ms. Coleman, is that that's what Seattle did.
Which one?
That they went to a random drawing. They opened up a period and then did it in that way.
They opened up a period. I don't recall a random drawing. You may have. They took a certain number of applications and they were just funding them. I don't recall the random drawing piece.
Okay. Did you have another? Assuming there are more applications for dollars than there are dollars, then did you have another means of identifying which businesses were going
Well,
to
the
receive
small
this?
stabilization grant, we were using the scoring document to do that.
Right, but if there are more, even after scoring,
Oh, I see what you're saying. We don't. I think the thought process is that in that scenario, if we're opening up for a window, we would start with the grants or the applications that scored the highest and roll through the dollars that way. But if there's another way that you would like for us to look through that or consider those applications, we can. In all likelihood, we will get more applications than there are dollars. These, from what we've seen from other cities, the money goes very quickly, and so unfortunately we can't service and fund all of our businesses. You know, we have about 44,000 businesses, and so that's why we wanted to make the process as objective as possible using the scoring mechanism. But if the board has another thought or would like to provide different direction.
I think that with regards to the small business stabilization grant, scoring first, but if there ends up being, even with the scoring, more applications than dollars, then you're going to have to go to a fair system of a lottery on those, and then the same would go for the other two grant programs.
Yeah, that would be my concern, because otherwise you're going to really help the larger the business, it's going to be more, and there's a lot of businesses with 10 people or 5 people that need some money.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. And that motion passes. Next item, please.
Thank you.
Next, we have item number 59, which is to approve the cancellation of previously funded projects and the closure of completed projects in the amount of $12 million. And authorize the transfer of $12 million from the County Capital Projects Fund 4370 to the General Fund 1010.
Okay. Do we have a presentation? No?
We do not, but if you would like for Ms. Colvin to describe what we are doing by this action.
I move approval.
Okay, Commissioner Jones has moved for, Commissioner Brown has moved for approval. Any other discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, please cast your vote. It's been a day. That motion passes.
Next, we have item number 60, which is to approve the cancellation of $3,340,656 in previously funded projects and the allocation of $15,347,928 from the Information Technology Capital Fund 4380 to fund information technology projects.
Move approval.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Brown for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. That motion passes.
Madam Chair, that completes your agenda for today.
Okay, this is the second time set aside for public comment. Anybody wishing to speak on public comment, please come forward, state your name for the record.
Madam Chair, I do have a written comment as well as someone on the phone.
Okay, let's start with the person on the phone first.
Could the individual who would like to speak on the phone please press star 1?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. State your name for the record, please.
Hi, this is Denisha Mingo. I'm a business owner here in the county, also a board member of our local Urban Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to first thank the county and everyone who's involved in creating these programs to support our small businesses. I'm very thankful to you all. I just wanted to have to clarify on that stabilization grant. Many of our small businesses, particularly those who are disadvantaged, I myself am a disadvantaged business, but I'm an essential business. We do therapy and counseling as well as services for children with autism. Many apply for the EIDL loan and the PPP, and some may have gotten the $10,000 advance or grant but did not get approved for the actual loan. And so for businesses, particularly those who have 15 to 20 employees, that still was not enough to cover the impact of COVID on our businesses. So if we got that, but we're not approved for the PPP or the SBA EIDL loan, is there room for those businesses, or will there be another opportunity for those businesses to get funding, because $10,000 is not sufficient for a business that has 15 to 20 employees?
Michelle, do we have her number so that we can have Ms. Coleman give her a call when this is over?
I do have an email address for
Okay.
Ms. Mingo.
So, ma'am, we'll go ahead and have Ms. Coleman give you a call, and she can work through that for you. Does that work?